Welcome to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast. This is Dr. Charles Laux, and we are recording episode number 108. This is a unique episode with our mini series featuring tips and tricks, and this one is more about violin and viola. And we were going to start with Mr. David Cho, who is a elementary string specialist in Prince William County, Virginia, and he will introduce himself. And following Mr. Cho's little demonstration, which I think you're all going to find really interesting, Harrison Cook and I also talked about some violin and viola pedagogy, some upper string pedagogy. We just shared some ideas, so you'll see that in this episode too. Again, just something a little different, a little shorter, and hope you're all enjoying your summer. But without further ado, here is David Cho.
My name is David Cho. I am now an elementary strings teacher down here in Prince William County, Virginia. It's part of the Northern Virginia region, just outside of Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. I've been in Prince William County for about 2.5 years, and I've enjoyed the work I've done with my students so far. I teach 5th grade elementary strings.
Awesome. And what are you going to share with us today, David?
I'm going to share with you guys ideas and strategies about the bow hand and the bow arm. What I've found really important to understand are a few things. One, the whole bow hand and bow arm thing isn't something that kids normally do in any part of their day or any other part of their lives. Particularly, and what my strategies around the bow hand center around are trying to give particular touch points for students to form their fingers correctly and placing their fingers correctly between in different parts of the grip. What I come up with this year that I was particularly proud of was finger tapes for the bow hand. You know how we all have finger tapes for the left hand.
Yeah, that's right.
Like from first finger, second finger, third finger, or first finger, third finger, fourth finger for cello.
Right.
Bass, that's a different story, but anyway. In my classroom and a lot of my colleagues' classrooms, we use red tape for first finger, white tape for second finger violin, viola, third finger cello, and blue tape for third finger violin, viola, fourth finger cello.
Those are big rolls of tape. Where do you get those?
I just Googled colored tapes in 1/4 inch wide strips. And I picked 1/4 inch wide because those tend to hang on to the grip better for my purposes. And you'll see in a sec.
Cool. Perfect.
With the bow hand, it's a really good aid to help kids remember that we need to be looking at this. How's my bow hand look, Charles?
That looks good. I think from here it looks good. Yeah, and you got the circle. You got everything going on there. Yeah.
Yep. I'm married to a violinist who's an incredible violinist, so she and I have talked a lot.
And you're a cellist.
Yes, I'm a cellist.
That's right. Okay.
That's right.
Perfect.
So what I do for the bow, finger tapes for the bow hand, first I remove the screw and let the frog fall off. Then I'll just tear off, if you can see.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll try to remove it. Just a short strip of red tape. And I place it where I would put the first finger grip. This is easier to place with an octagonal grip than it is with a round grip, but we'll make the best do we can.
Let's see.
And what I do is
perfect.
I slant the tape like this so the student can trace the finger.
Yeah.
But
you got the pronation.
I take another strip of tape and I turn it the opposite way so that the student can see inside their bow hand to see which way to tilt the first finger. So it looks like this from the outside, the audience view, and it will look like this from the student view. Perfect. If you can see that.
Yeah, that's
great. Clear?
Yeah, that's super clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, next, I'll take and that's for index finger, or what I will call first finger in class.
Great.
So there's that area between the grip of the bow and the frog. In my experience, I've had a hard time having students remember what that exactly is. So I just put another piece of tape, just like this, just like this.
Okay.
And I also let it wrap around. Then I will take another short strip of tape. And when I say short strip, maybe not more than 3/4 of an inch.
Okay. Perfect.
Between half to 3/4 of an inch. And
so that roll will last you a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I order these rolls, so that I can go through lots of these finger tapes and not be nervous about running out. Fortunately, when I ordered these came in packs of 3.
Oh, wow. So you have enough to last you decades.
Yeah. And then I do the same thing with this other white strip of tape to put on the other side like this, so that the audience view is this and the student view is this.
Okay, so there's like a contact point at the top of the bow where, I can see that's a great view of how to put the tapes on. So it looks like an arrow kind of pointing up.
An arrow, exactly.
Perfect. Great.
With the blue tape, I'll make sure I leave. And maybe a good rule of thumb is the length of the tape should be about maybe half of your fingertip.
Okay.
And then I put this one over the part where the frog slides. And I will actually wrap it around so that the frog slides underneath.
Okay. It doesn't get in the way
because that's where it ends up going anyway.
Cool.
Then I will do the same thing over here, where I will put the other strip of blue tape opposite. Then I will put the frog back on. And if you can't tell, this can be somewhat time consuming.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't expect a teacher to do all of their bows, although I do personally.
Right.
Because I believe that it's been so worth it to have all of my students have fingertips on their bow grip. Yep. And that's what you've got. Is that clear?
Yeah, it's very clear, and it lets every student know, where their fingers are supposed to go. It's great.
Okay.
Are you ready to shake up your next orchestra trip? Kaleidoscope Adventures has been planning performance travel beyond expectations for more than 30 years. They know the best destinations and the most iconic venues for orchestras. Check out the Kaleidoscope Adventures link in the show notes below for fresh ideas and inspiration. And then let them do their magic. They'll handle all the details from start to finish, so all you have to do is enjoy the experience.
So now, first finger on the red, slanted in the same direction as the tape.
Perfect.
Second finger on the white, slanted in the same direction as the tape. Third finger on the blue, pinky on top right next to.
Yep.
And the white, and the thumb goes on the white.
Oh, okay. Great.
And there you have your bow hand.
Yeah. Do you accommodate for students with, you have younger students? Are you having to make some things just a little bit smaller for them? Obviously, it's going to be a smaller bow and things.
Yes, you do.
Mm-hmm.
And for cello bow hand, which I forgot to bring over, you can do the same thing, except you don't slant the finger. You don't slant the tapes as much for cello bow hand as you do for violin.
Yeah, so it's I consider the violin viola bow hand like a 45-degree angle. Mm-hmm. As a cellist, what would you say? Would it be just a slight amount of
very
tilt?
Slight? I'd say between 70 to 80 degrees.
Okay, perfect.
Me personally, I tend to pronate my cello bow hand more than most other cellists.
Right, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, because I would rather have that all day over the supination of going the wrong way, which happens a lot.
Exactly.
Too, so for sure.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So that's been my biggest thing about bow hands, and really being able to give these students these touch points of the bow.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. That's a really great strategy, and for teachers who students are struggling with the supination or just where to go, or even if you're a new teacher too, it'd be helpful for you to have those checkpoints and that diagnosis of are those fingers on that tape. So I think it's great.
Yeah, yeah, and it's also a lot, particularly with the middle finger and thumb. It's a lot easier than trying to say, okay, find that area right between the frog and the grip. Yeah. Just say white tape, and most kids will get it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, this is awesome. I appreciate you sharing your your strategy here, and it sounds amazing. And any teachers out there, definitely check it out. But thank you, David, for being a guest on our first guest of our mini series of podcast episodes. We appreciate your time, and thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely. One thing I will say, particularly about the bow hand, another thing that really helped me out in terms of getting students to keep the thumb across from the middle finger.
Right. Yep.
Is doing a lot of finger taps.
Just taps. Right.
Finger taps where you're tucking the thumb to the ring finger and to the pinky.
Just for
that
awareness.
will help strengthen that, to give more flexibility to that pinky and help the student become more accustomed to the pressure that the tucking the thumb puts on the bow hand. So once you're comfortable tapping your thumb all the way to the pinky, putting your thumb on the middle finger won't be such a big deal.
That's a good point.
So that's another thing about bow hand.
Love that. That's a great idea.
Right.
And it also just makes, especially for younger kids, just an awareness of what it's supposed to feel like, So it's great.
Yeah. And another thing I like is I got the finger tapping idea from Winifred Kroc. Dr. Angela Ammerman elaborated on that in a really strategic way. She says to finger tap not just the tip of your finger, but the middle of your finger.
Okay. Yep.
So your students are aware of this part of the finger, because that's the part of the finger that the contacts the stick, other than the tip of the pinky.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So do the same thing with middle finger, middle part, and then pinky just tip.
Yeah, it's really hard to kind of do the other one, but that's great. I love it.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much again, and we'll see all of you next time on our mini episodes of the Orchestra Teacher Podcast.
Pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, David, for being here. All right, now I'm going to talk some violin. So what are some questions that you have?
So my freshmen especially especially second violins, they have this issue where, I think it was what you were just talking about, where it comes down.
Yeah, that is a huge issue. Is the instrument not sitting, I gotta be careful with my microphone here, not sitting on the actual shoulder. So if I turn myself around, the instrument will come onto the chest. And so I tell them, if someone above you can see your shoulder, then your instrument's not in shoulder position. So just imagine, like, the story we used in middle school was the bird droppings, so like there's this magical bird that only poops on the left shoulder. So you got to make sure you cover that up.
Okay.
If it's exposed,
I like it.
You're going to get pooped on.
Okay.
That's
awesome.
So that works great with middle school kids.
Okay.
If you're into potty humor.
Yeah.
But so that's a big thing. And so for me, the number one problem causing that really is the music stand. Because the kids will be here, you set up your chairs perfectly, like ours are kind of at a 45, and the music stand's here, and they just automatically go this way, right? So for me, it's to make sure that the kids know that they can spin in their chair, and they can also turn their chair if they need to turn it. And just making sure that they realize that that's a thing.
Right. Okay.
And so what they do early on is you put your hand over here and you feel like a hook. So you can feel like your hand's just like you're hanging here, like you're on the edge of a cliff hanging here. And that's where your shoulder rest should go and hang over, right? And that's why I'm not necessarily a huge fan of sponges and things like that. I'd like a rigid shoulder rest because it has that hook and you can feel over the shoulder.
Cool. So I'm always quick to tell them it's called a shoulder rest, not a chest rest.
It's not a chest rest.
But the chin rest is
It's
really
a jaw rest.
A jaw rest, right? Okay.
So I wish we should change the name.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and then there's all those different types. Mine hovers over the tailpiece a little bit. So it's not a center mount, but it's close to it. And for me, that works well. But every person could be a little different. And obviously, in school situations, you may not have the ability just to swap out a whole bunch of chin rests.
Do you have a variety at your school, or is it just one?
I have a variety of different things. Some of the Guarneri type, where it's center mount, there's that little piece over the tailpiece, and then the larger chin rest. Mine's quite high. This is what works for me. There's a big kind of a cup here, so that your jaw will connect, and that's why I like it, because my jaw can go in there and I mean pull it, pull. You can't pull that out, right?
Sure.
And so that's one of the other things I'll test with kids is I'll go around and I'll just tug, make sure they have it in here. And I don't like to say lock it in, but it's almost kind of like it's locked in. And I tell myself I can go home and wash dishes and do my laundry like this and fold laundry just like this and like this all day. It's that comfortable. So that's how it needs to be. But having that shoulder rest and I say this in my presentations that the only reason you shouldn't have a shoulder rest is if you don't have a neck. But that's and there are different schools of thought on that, and some teachers will probably email me and say you don't have to have a shoulder rest. There's a lot of people great players that play without one.
Sure. But okay. So next thing would be once they're set up here, frog to tip. What's happening to the elbow?
Okay, great question. So it depends what string length string you're on, but obviously just sitting up on the D string, the big thing I see is kids will play the G string and the elbow's down here. Yep. And then I tell them, I said, does this look comfortable? And they're like, no, you look ridiculous. I'm like, this is how you're playing. Yeah. So we have to make sure that we think of it as a plane, just very similar to what you're doing in thumb position with the left arm. This is a plane, right? So when this is up, and we always steer from the elbow, so here, right? Okay. So it's one solid plane. And your string crossing, obviously you're gonna do some different things with the wrist, but generally it's a plane. So this steers and this steers.
Okay.
And so just like you said, you move from the elbow, so it's moving in this similar motion.
Right.
And so if you're doing it wrong, you could do it opposite motion, right? Okay. But that's what you want to think about. And I also see a lot of students forgetting to move this. That's why you get A string looks good, E string. Yep. E string playing, and then they go back. So
and they're just steer.
They're not coming back, right? Okay. And or they have weird hand position on the G string. They can't play it because elbow's not coming under. So and I tell them if I take this away, this is not a really normal look. When I at this elbow under, but this is what it needs to be. So there's lots of things that they have to just kind of think about. So I always talk about the little person swinging down here, the little person swinging back and forth. Well, that's fun, right? So we'll do those. We'll do taps on each string, and we'll move the elbow accordingly. With the left hand. And we'll do the same thing here too. There's that where you can put your bow on the bridge and just rock back and forth, right? So just keep that elbow moving. Those are some good things just to make kids aware of where those planes have to be.
Then once they get the plane correct and they're pulling, are you thinking with your wrist in terms of pulling?
Yeah. So one of the things I discovered when I was teaching at Kennesaw was a girl had one of those hair ties on her wrist. Okay. They take them out of their hair and they put them on their wrist so they don't lose them. And I was teaching this method class. I saw it. I'm pulling on that. So I kind of think about, and I use my my sources of strength and AFSP bands here to think about I'm pulling down, I lead with the wrist down, right? And then as I come up, I lead with the wrist up. So it's always here. So kids can do this. You can have them, do it in the air. So we're just pushing up. You can see that all the way up, right? And all the way down. And so push up with your wrist and down, right? And if you keep the bow in a straight line all the way up, that's what that rocket ship exercise kind of does that I do here and all the way down.
So how much of this is there versus in cello? It's all about pronating. Do you guys pronate a lot? Or?
I say that there's some pronation, especially at the frog. And then once you're in the middle of the bow, I would say the wrist is quite straight. You have a square here, so I think of the square shape. And then as we go to the tip, it's going to come out. It's going to open up, right? Okay. And this is the other thing. If they don't open up the wrist down here, and see that, then they end up coming back this way. So that's one of the huge things is I talk about pushing down or pushing out and away, because we really want to have, instead of having a parallel bow, we really want to have a smiley face bow. So I start, you can see this here. I start with the tip of the bow outward, right? I pull down. By the time I get to the middle of the bow, then it's perpendicular, and then I go out. I'm actually going away from, and this crooked bow, if you want to call it that, is actually a good thing, because now you see where the bow tip goes into the bridge, as opposed to get that gap. So So that is a huge thing. And then same thing here, as I pronate up and I have a crooked bow this way, right? I call them smiley face bows because it makes a smiley face.
Okay.
To me, frowny face to you. But that, for me, that actually pushes the bow into the bridge too. So we're controlling that with the fingers, but letting that fingers kind of come in a little bit, push out, and back in. Yeah.
So different than cello.
Yes, it's very different than cello. Yeah.
And I approach everything from that in mind. I'm like, oh, perfectly straight bows, and adjust it when you need to. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I mean, that's the smiley face bow thing is kind of a more advanced thing that you would use for high school or advanced middle school students. I mean, when they're in 6th grade, I just hope that it's perpendicular and hope that they're actually using their wrists and fingers. But we're working on the Mendelssohn Symphonia Number 7 in D minor. It's really fast, and the kids want to pump the tempo up, and they're like, well, we keep getting slower because we're going to do it without a conductor.
Okay, cool.
And hopefully it's cool. I told them today, it was just this afternoon, I said, the reason that you're getting slower is because you're not using your fingers and wrist to play these 8th notes. You're using your arm, and I see a lot of stiff wrists, and so there's no way you can keep up the tempo that we want to keep up with that technique. So it's a technical thing, and and some of my students are great with that, and some of them still are working on it.
Yeah. Do you do exercises just to gain independence of these joints as well?
A little bit, yeah. And then, just all the things that you can do at the beginning with that Collet motion, the long fingers, short fingers, trying to do circles with your fingers, but just freeing it up. And then, of course, that thumb is one of my most important things is keeping that thumb bent, but realizing that in a bow stroke, we don't have a bow hold. We have, it's always morphing. So at the frog, I have a frog bow hold. This is what we teach the kids. But by the middle, it's just kind of halfway there. And then by the time they get to the tip, my fingers are, this is my tip, I call it my tip bow hold. My fingers are almost straight at this point, right?
Okay.
Right? They come up. Now my fingers are really curved.
Right.
So at the tip, this is what my fingers look like when I'm at the tip. This is what they look like at the frog.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So so that Collet motion, do you do Collet on the cello? Okay. Is it the same kind of motion with the fingers?
Yeah. Or
are you using more of wrist?
There's more wrist, but we still have to activate.
Yeah. So on the violin viola, it really should be, I would say, 90% fingers.
Okay. Cool.
Right. I did this for hours. My Galamian taught teacher had me do that a lot, and I had a very, very bad bow hold and very stiff fingers when I went to college, and so having to do scales, Kreutzer etudes that are certain ones that work really well with that Collet motion.
Cool.
I learned a lot.
Does your bow tilt at all? Does the plane of it tilt?
You mean this way? Yep. Oh yeah. So normally we tilt away from the stick away from our nose, right?
But when you get to the tip, does it rotate
out? I would say it's still tilted.
Okay.
Maybe not as much, but and then in order to get spiccato to work, it has to be tilted. Yeah, if you have kids that can't do spiccato, it's probably because they're trying to do it flat hair.
Gotcha.
And the bow doesn't react, or they're in the wrong part of the bow.
Yeah.
But if you're at the balance point, where we should be when we do spiccato, and it still doesn't sound good, it's probably because it's flat.
Gotcha.
Flat hair.
Interesting. Again, very different than cello.
Yes.
Because we never rotate out. Ever.
Okay.
Because that again breaks the wrist.
Oh yeah.
Everything's here. So if you want a bigger sound, you just add more weight, and that activates more of the bow hair.
Yeah. You guys the cellists have a more square on bow hold with less pronation.
Right.
Depending, it depends. Yeah. You don't have.
Correct.
There's some schools of violin playing where it's really pronated.
Yeah, it shouldn't be exaggerated.
Yeah. It is pronated some.
Yeah.
But it's.
And that's mainly to help you when you get out here.
Out at the tip of the bow.
Because we use our first finger a ton.
Yeah, we do too. Yeah. And so one of my things I have students do is I say make sure that you can get the stick to touch the hair.
Yeah,
and just flex that way, right? So we'll do that here. You see that difference, and then obviously you don't have to do very much down here. So we talk about the addition of weight on the down bow, and then the retraction of the weight on the up bow.
Cool. Nice. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking great questions.
Yeah.
Hopefully it was helpful.
Yeah, definitely was. Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in. For resources and more information, visit orchestrateacher.net.